For this project, you're gonna need multicolored Bernat blanket yarn, a matching solid color Bernat blanket yarn. I'm using Crafter's Secret Big Idea White and Karen's Simply Soft Gold, and you're gonna need a soft purple and a black about the same thickness as the white. But besides yarn, you're gonna need scissors, a yarn needle, a stitch marker, an 8mm hook, and a 4mm hook. We're going to start our owl by making our body out of our multicolored Bernat blanket yarn. So we're going to start with a magic circle of 6, which I'll quickly demonstrate to you now. So we have the end of our yarn over our fingers like this, wrap it around and cross over. So we're going to go under this, grab this yarn in the back, and then bring our working yarn through this loop that's on our hook. So for our magic circle, we're going to do 6 single crochet, which I will demonstrate now. So you do a single crochet, you go under these two, this tail and the ring, go under that, bring our yarn through, so you should have 2 loops on your hook, and then bring your yarn through again, and that's a single crochet. So we're gonna do 6 single crochet total. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So we can tighten that but not break our yarn. Put our stitch marker in here, and then we're going to make increases all around. And to do that, you just put 2 single crochet in each loop. So this is the loop that we just came from our magic circle. So we're going to skip that for now and go into the next one. And preferably we're going to be going over this tail here to make it more secure. And then we're going to do 6 increases all around. So we're going to do 1 increase, and that's 1 single crochet in there, and then another in the same stitch. So then we have 1 increase. So we're going to do that 5 more times around for a total of 6 increases. So I've done 5 of my increases, and for this 6th increase, I'm going to take one of these loops from when we did our magic circle, go through one of those with our hook, and then go into our next stitch and proceed to do an increase. So 1 single crochet and 2 in the same stitch. So we can move our stitch marker, and for this next row we're going to do 1 single crochet in the next stitch. So that's 1 single crochet, and then an increase in the next stitch. So that's 1 and 2. So that's a single crochet increase, and we're going to repeat that pattern a total of 6 times all the way around. So I have 5 more to go. After we've done a pattern of single crochet increase 6 times around, we should have 18 stitches. And for these next few rows, we're going to be doing only single crochet, and that is for 4 rows. So for 4 rows, we're only going to be single crocheting. So when we're done, we will still have 18 stitches around. Crocheting an owl made me think of wisdom, and that reminded me of the Bible verse, Proverbs 1:7, which states, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge." And now I've done 4 rows of just single crocheting, and I still have 18 stitches all the way around. And now I'm gonna briefly show you how to do a decrease, or at least how I do it. I believe this is called an invisible decrease, where you grab the front loop. You see how there's two loops here in this stitch? You grab the front loop of this stitch and the front loop of the next stitch with your hook. Bring your yarn through both of those, and then proceed like you're doing a single crochet, bringing your yarn through both loops on your hook. And that is a decrease. So I've done one, and I'm going to do it 8 more times for a total of 9 decreases around. Now that we've done 9 decreases, we will have a total of 9 stitches around. And right now, we can start stuffing it, because our next row is going to be our last row. So we can get our stitch marker. And for this row, we're going to do a total of 3 decreases. So that's 1 decrease, 1, 2, and 3. So then we can fasten off into the next stitch. So we're going to do that by going into our next stitch, pulling our yarn through, pulling it through the other loop on our hook, and then pulling this through here. And then you would cut this yarn, but I already have. So then we can tighten this. Then we can stuff it a bit more if we want to. It'd be helpful to use your hook through this small hole. And then we can take our tail and pull it through our yarn needle. So now we're going to take our yarn and pull it through all of these stitches. So we're going to go behind this stitch and through. Then we're going to skip the next stitch and go behind this one. And we're going to repeat that till we've got back to where we were. Okay, and then this is your last chance to stuff it if you feel the need to. So once we've got all of our stuffing in there, we can pull this gently and tighten up our hole to have our little kind of egg shape here for the owl. So now we're going to fasten this off by pulling our needle through a loop near here, but not all the way, leaving a loop for us, and we're going to go back through that to tie it off. Then we can pull our needle through in a spot near that and just come out and cut off that excess yarn. So now we have our little egg shape for our owl. And now we're going to make the little ear tuft. And for that, we're going to have to make a magic circle. And for this magic circle, we're going to use this loop here. So make sure not to make it too tight. So then we're going to have a magic circle of a total of 4 stitches. So we're counting this time, and we're going to make 3 more single crochet into the magic circle. So 1, 2, and 3. So we can tighten that, and we're going to go into this loop from our magic circle this time. And we're gonna also be going over our tail. So we're gonna put one single crochet in this stitch that was our magic circle loop. So that's one single crochet. Oh, if I can get it through. Might have tightened this too much. Okay, so a single crochet, and then in the next stitch we're going to do an increase. So go into the next stitch, still going over this tail, 1 and 2 to make an increase. And then I'm going to stop going over my tail from the magic circle now. And in the next stitch, it's going to be a single crochet. And then in the next stitch, one last single crochet. Okay, so then we're going to fasten off in this next stitch. And we're going to leave a tail long enough so that we can sew it on to our owl. And then you need to make one more of these. So now we have 2 ear tufts, which will go onto our owl like this. And we can start on the wings now. So get your solid colored yarn, and to make the wing, we are going to start with a magic circle of 3. So wrapping it around to make our magic circle. And again, like for the ears, we're going to use this loop from the magic circle, so don't make it too tight. And then we're going to put 3 single crochet into our magic circle. So 1, 2, and 3. We can tighten that. And instead of working in rounds like we were for our other projects, we're going to chain 1, turn our hook, and we're going to do 3 increases. So that'll be a total of 6 stitches in all. So 1 increase in this first stitch, another increase in the next stitch, and an increase in our loop from our magic circle here. So I'm gonna get in our loop, 1 and 2. So then we're going to chain and turn our hook again, and we're going to go into this first loop, and we're going to do 3 increases in this loop. So an increase of 3. So 1, 2, and then a third stitch in this third single crochet in the same stitch. And then in our next stitch, we're going to do a slip knot, or a slip stitch, not a slip knot. So we're going to go into it, bring it through, and bring it through our loop on our yarn, on our hook. So we're going to repeat that 3 times total, so 2 more times, an increase of 3, a slip stitch, an increase of 3, and a slip stitch. So that increasing and slip stitching should have given it kind of a feathery almost surface. You can kind of see the bumps there. And so now we're going to fasten off by pulling that through, tightening it, and we're going to leave a tail long enough to sew it on. Pretty long tail on this one since we're going to be sewing on most of the wing. So that's about right. And now you're going to need 2 of these. which I already have, and they're going to go on the owl. They're going to go on the owl like this, pretty much on the side, just like this. So then we can start on our tail for the owl. And we're going to do that in our solid color yarn. We're going to take our 8mm hook still, and we're going to do a slip knot this time. So we do that kind of like we do our magic circle. Take our thread like this, wrap it around, go under and pull that one behind it through. But instead of pulling this loop through it like we would normally, we're going to just tighten it like this. And that is a slip knot. So now we're going to chain 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then we're going to turn our hook and single crochet across. So that will be 4 stitches. 1. We won't be going into this chain behind the one on our hook because it's coming out of that, but we're going to skip that one and go into the next chain. So 1, and then the next chain, 2, 2, single crochet, 3, and 4. So for our neck, then we're gonna chain. We're gonna turn our hook, not go into this loop, but the next one here. We're going to do a single crochet in this one, and then a decrease in the next one. So I'm gonna do my decreases differently because this you'll be able to see both sides of this. So instead of pulling these 2 loops, leaving these loops here, we're going to pull a loop through this next stitch, not do anything with that for now, and we're going to pull a loop through our next stitch too. So now we have 3 loops on our hook, and we're going to pull our working yarn through all 3 of them. So then in the last stitch we're going to do 1 single crochet. So we are going to chain after that, turn our hook around, and do 3 single crochet across. And that is it for the tail. We just need to fasten off, pull that through, tighten it, and leave a tail long enough to sew this to the body. So we're going to put it on the body like this. And now we're going to move on to our eyes. So we are going to start with the whites of the eyes. For this, you're going to need your white yarn and your 4mm hook. So we're going to start this with a magic circle of 6. So we'll make our magic circle, and then we're going to do 6 single crochet into the magic circle. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So then we tighten our magic circle, and we put our stitch marker in if we want to. I'm not going to though. And for this next row, we're going to do an increase all around. So we're going to skip this first loop here, because that was formed by making our magic circle. We're going to go into the next loop and make 2 single crochet into that, preferably going over our tail. So 1, single crochet and 2 in the same stitch. So we're going to do that all the way around. So I've done a total of 5 increases around, and now I'm doing my last one. So I'm going to take a loop from the loop we made with our magic circle, and then go into our next stitch, and then do an increase. 1 and 2. So now we can get our stitch marker, put that in here, and then we're going to do a round of single crochet and then an increase. So we're going to do 1 in the first stitch, 1 single crochet, and then 2 in the next stitch. So 1 and 2. So we're going to repeat that all the way around. And when we're done, we should have a total of 18 stitches. After we've done a pattern of single crochet increase 6 times around and have 18 stitches around, we can take our stitch marker out and we can fasten off. So we pull our working yarn through this next stitch and through the loop on our hook, and then pull our working yarn through that loop, and then we make sure we have enough to sew it on, enough tail that is, and then we can cut it. And after we make 2 of those, we can move on to the iris. Now that we've made 2 whites of the eyes, we can move on to our irises. So we're going to take our soft purple yarn and our 4mm hook, and we're going to start off again with a magic circle of 6. And after we make our magic circle, we do 6 single crochet into it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So we can tighten our magic circle, put our stitch marker in if we want to, and then we continue going around and skip this and go into the next one, and we do an increase. So 1 single crochet and 2. So we're going to repeat that a total of 6 times around, so I have 5 more times. So now I have 1 more increase to do, so I can take my stitch marker out, and I'm going to take a loop from my magic circle loop, go into the next stitch, 1 single crochet, and 2. So then we go into our next stitch, pull our working yarn through everything on our hook, and we're going to fasten off. And then we make sure to leave a tail to sew it on. And then we're going to make 2 of those. When we've made 2 irises, we can set those aside, take our black yarn and our 4mm hook, and we're just going to make a magic circle of 6. And then after that we fasten off. So magic circle, pull that through, and then 6 single crochet. So going over all the tail included, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So then we can tighten our magic circle, and we fasten off. I like to fasten off into the loop we made with the magic circle, which is here. So pull our working yarn through everything on our hook. And for the pupils, normally when fastening off, you take your working yarn through this loop, but for the pupils, to help keep them more round, I like to just take this and cut that. But I'll show you how I did that again. So this is after we've done our magic circle of 6. I go into the loop from the magic circle, pull my yarn through it and the other loop, and then we can just use that as our tail to sew it on. So I'm going to do that to keep the pupil rounder instead of, because sometimes when you fasten off you can get a, like on this, there's a little bump there. But for the pupil being so small, I don't want to have to deal with that. And then we just make one more of those. After making 2 of the pupils, we are going to move on to the toes. So we're going to take our Caron Simply Soft in the color gold, and then we're going to start off with a magic circle of 6. So we're going to wrap it around our fingers, under and over, make our magic circle. Then we're going to put 6 single crochet into it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So I'm going to count just to make sure, skipping over our loop from the magic circle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, nice. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do a lot of single crocheting. So I'm going to put my stitch marker in to help me count my rows, and we are going to skip this loop, and when we come back around, we will go into the loop from the magic circle like usual, but we're just going to continue to single crochet around for 4 rows, and then it'll be done actually. So 6 single crochet around, 4 rows. So you can see here, this is my 5th stitch of this row, and for our final and 6th stitch, we're going to take the loop from our magic circle and then go into, I'm going to move this stitch marker for right now, and then go into our last stitch. And now, like that row of single crochet I did, we're just going to do that 3 more times for a total of 4 rows of single crochet. Now I've done 4 rows of single crochet, and as you can see, our tail from our magic circle is sticking out. So in order to fix that, I'm going to put my hook through a hole the front of the toe, if I can, and I'm going to come out the top and just pull that magic circle tail in so that we don't have to deal with that later. So now we can sew it on without worrying about any of that. So we've done 4 rows of single crochet after doing a magic circle of 6, and we're going to fasten off. So we're going to pull this through all the loops on our hook, and then pull our working yarn through that. Now make sure you have enough tail to sew it on. You could do enough tail to sew on 2 of the toes, as the foot is going to look like this, but I'm just going to do enough for 1 on both of them. So Now we can cut that, and you have to make 4 of these toes. After we make 4 toes, so our body can kind of sit in them like this, we can move on to our final piece, which will be the beak. So to start our beak, we're going to make a slip stitch, which is how we started the tail also, but I'm going to show you how to do it again. So we're going to act like we're doing a magic circle with our yarn over our fingers like this, and then we're going to wrap it around, cross it over, go under this first one, and take that through. But instead of pulling this through like we normally would, we're going to take our tail from our magic circle and just pull on that. So now we have a slip knot. And then we're going to chain 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now we can turn our hook and do 4 single crochet across. So we're not going to go into this chain after the chain on our hook, because that's the one it's coming out of, but we're going to skip that and go into this one. And then we're going to do a single crochet into that. So we've done 1 single crochet, so we need 3 more for a total of 4. So 1, 2, 2, and 3. So now we have a total of 4. Now we can chain, turn our hook, turn our work around, I guess, but it's called turning the hook. So then we do a single crochet into this, not this one here, that's just to hold our chain on our hook. Gonna skip that and go into this, our first stitch. I'm gonna do 1 single crochet. Then for the next one, we're gonna do a decrease, like the one I showed on the tail. So I'm gonna bring that through that second one, bring it through this third one too. Now we're gonna pull our working yarn through all 3. Then for the final stitch, we're gonna do a single crochet. If we can get into both loops of it, that is. Okay, so a single crochet. So we're going to chain again, turn our hook, and then I call this, I don't know what it's called particularly, but I call it a decrease of 3. So you can see we have 3 stitches here. Instead of doing a decrease where we bring 2 loops through, I am going to do, so I have 2 loops through those first 2 stitches. I'm also going to bring a loop through that final stitch. So I'm going to decrease that. And then, so we have 4 loops on our hook now. I'm going to bring our working yarn through all 4. Oh, okay. So now we can fasten off. We're going to do that by bringing our working yarn through this 1 loop on our hook. So now it's going to go onto its face flat like this, kind of like an actual owl where its beak is kind of on its face. Obviously. So then we're going to make sure we have enough yarn to pull it through, to sew it on the face all around. Cut that, and that is our final piece we have to crochet. Now I'm going to start the assembly. So I'm going to put the wings on first, and we're going to do that by kind of like this, and we're going to take our tail that we made long enough so that we can sew it on, put that through our hook. Ugh, hate it when that happens, because now if you can pull on that, it'll all just come apart. So you have to cut it and just try again. So get our yarn through our yarn needle, not necessarily a curved one like this. Okay. And then we can sew it on the side. So I'm going to do that by kind of going around this part and then just to about here, skip, and then sewing along here and then up here, so that this part will be still sticking out. I'll try to explain it better when I have it sewed on, which will be in just a moment. So I've sewn around from here all the way over to down here. Then instead of continuing to go around, I went up and around some more, so that this would kind of stick out like a wing. So now I can fasten off my sewing yarn by going in a loop nearby, not quite pulling it all the way through, and then going through this loop I've left and tying it off. Then I hide it. Okay, and I'll be back when I've done this with the other wing too. As you can see, I've sewn on my other wing, and I tried to keep it about symmetrical with the other one, but I haven't quite succeeded at that. So now we can sew on the tail. So we're going to take the tail from our tail and put it through our yarn needle, if we can. Okay, and then we'll worry about hiding this later, but for now we're going to sew it on and about the, let me count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and about the 7th row, 7th, 8th, it doesn't matter so much. I might actually do it in the 8th row. Okay, in between them. And so we take our yarn, go through our tail first. At least it's not, I mean, I guess you don't have to do that, but that's what I'm gonna do. Go through project, and we can sew that on real easy. I'll be back when I've completed sewing it on as securely as I can. So I've sewn all the way across for my tail, and now we can tie this off, go through, leave a loop, and tighten that, hide it in our owl, and I'll cut that later, cut this tail. Now for this though, we cannot cut that, especially not real close. So we're going to take our yarn needle and put this through it. Okay, and then we're going to take this string and thread it through and into the body. So we're going to go in about here. There's not really any exact place to put it in. Just make sure you can't see it from the top at least. The bottom doesn't matter so much. So I'm going to take it through about here, through all these stitches, and then finally into the body. Take that out. It's okay if we bring some stuffing out like that. We can just poke that right back in with our hook, like so. Or not like that, but take it back with our hook. Then we can cut that tail later. So we've tightened this quite a bit. We can just pull that back out, and I've done a terrible job at that, of course, but I'll fix that afterwards. So now that you've hopefully hidden this tail better and sewn it on, we can do the ear tufts. So I've also sewn the ear tufts on, and they are about 2 stitches apart. And you might remember that we increased on one side of the ear tufts. I tried to put the increase out. So that you want the increase on these sides. Now we can move on to the feet. So we are going to sew the feet on in pairs. So like this kind of. And the same on the other side. Try to make it obvious that they're two distinct feet. Okay. So I've sewn those toes on now, and now I can cut my tails that I stuck through to the back. And now we can move on to sewing on the beak. And for the beak, this is the tip. Your tail that you're gonna sew with is coming off of the tip of the beak. So we're gonna sew it on like this, and about the middle of the face, making sure to leave enough room for its giant eyes. I've got the beak on the face now, and we can move on to sewing the eyes together. Not onto this yet, but we are going to put the irises on the eyes first. And we're going to want to put them, I like to put them looking up instead of just straight ahead, kind of towards the center, like almost like cross-eyed, but then you turn it up a bit. Or you can just put them in the middle if you'd like to. But I think I'm going to do them up this time. Okay. And now for the pupils, which if we made our irises kind of looking up, we want to make our pupils looking up too. Now we have finished the eyes. So I'm going to quickly explain how to sew these on. Make sure you don't do it over this beak part, just maybe even touching it or far away from it, doesn't really matter. But what I do is I will sew pretty much around kind of how we did the wings actually. So around about this part and then straight through here. So the eye will be sticking off of it a little bit. Yeah. I thought that looked good. The eyes are slightly inspired by the owls made by the channel Complicated Knots, and her videos are really great, so you should definitely go check that out. But this pattern is entirely original. So we're gonna sew them so that they're sticking off here, and I'll explain it better after I have them both sewed on like that, making sure not to make it cross-eyed, but looking up like that. Or you can do it cross-eyed if you like that. It is a funny look. I've just realized something. I had my tail coming out here, but I'm not going to sew that part on the eye. Last time I'd made this, I remembered to do that, have that tail sticking out about here, but this time I did not. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just pull my thread through these, just loop it through these till I'm about where I want to be with it. Sorry about that, guys. So I've sewn from here all the way to down here. So I'm going to sew across to here, which won't be exactly where I started sewing, but it'll be about right. And then I'll sew to where I started. But before I do that, I'm going to bring my hook, if I can find it, through, or whatever hook I have, through it, and I'm going to grab all these ends that I tied together on the eye and pull that through to hide those and not make the eye bulge too much. Okay, so now I'm going to sew across the eye. So I've sewn across and around a bit on this one now, and it is sticking off the side a little bit, but I kind of like that. And how I sewn on it is going to be a bit cross-eyed, but it adds character. So I'll sew this one on about the same as this one. I hope you enjoyed making this owl, and it would be super helpful to me if y'all could put in the comments what you would like to see another video of, because I really don't know what I'm going to do. And I guess I'm supposed to ask you to subscribe too, if you want to, I guess. Okay, bye.